Hello. Today is another day, a new morning. Every day is an opportunity for change, for becoming aware. Each morning is like a new birth. Every day in the morning, we are born. This is what symbolizes the opportunity to start something new in a new way. And in the evening, of course, comes death, the withdrawal from reality. Consciousness goes to sleep to take its rest, to get away from daily activities. Then, of course, great fears are awakened in the evening. It's the fear of disappearing, of being gone, of the dark. When I close my eyes, it's like being in the abyss of death, being lost, swallowed up in ignorance. I'm left alone. There's silence. This is the time when all the thoughts that need to be heard, realized, which are suppressed in one way or another, invade our mind. Here come experiences and emotions that we disregard in our daily lives. So every day we are symbolically being born and dying, in the morning and in the evening. Today, we are continuing with the topic of relationships and love. Our theme is about connecting and another truth about love. First, I ask you to consider your current relationship or commitment. If you aren't in one at this point, look at the last significant one or some other past relationship. In general, also go through the story of all your significant relationships to find some common things that moved you, commonalities that have connected you, things that you needed to realize about the relationship, or you recognize as building resources. Also consider the factors that cause the separation. How often do they occur? How often are they repeated? You need to take a hard look and recognize the connections and similarities in the relationships. Because what I want to pay attention to is whether or not we seek salvation through relationships. If so, we will suffer mainly disappointment if we are trying to save ourselves or waiting for someone to save us. Let's find another savior in our lives. The story from previous relationships matters because the choice to be saved by someone else is often a result of having been disappointed before. Something was missing. There's pain, bitterness, or some negative feeling which are left, and at some point, I'm leaving, or the other person is leaving. It doesn't matter who does the leaving, and I am left with the intention that I'm going to erase what happened, that I'm going to forget and hide what was painful and negative. And I'm going to look for what was missing in another partner, who's going to give me what I've been missing so far, because someone hasn't appreciated me, or hasn't been able to understand the importance of giving it to me. But this is another trap that unconsciously motivates us and creates a need in us to seek a new relationship, with the subconscious intention of being saved and cured from what remains from a previous relationship in my inner emotionality and sensitivity. But by doing so, we reintroduce past history, past pain, something unfinished into the next relationship, into the idea of the new experience. Because imagine how we connect on many levels when we enter into a relationship with a partner, and when we leave, when we separate, and we are left with the feeling of pain, when we haven't resolved a given problem, then this remains as one more missing element, unfinished mourning, because of insult, anger, bitterness, betrayal, whatever you want to call it. And we don't give ourselves the time and space we need to be alone with ourselves, to analyze this story, to work with the pain. Imagine that we are connected with some energy chains or threads somewhere at the back of our minds. This pain will continue holding on to us in an unconscious way, And to a large extent, without realizing it, we'll spend a lot of energy to keep it locked in there. Let's not recall disappointment, betrayal. Let's not open this ache again. Let's try to erase it, forget it, turn it off, so that we can stop constantly inflicting this pain on each other when entering into the search for the new relationship. Conversely, we will enter with a partially opened heart, with only half of our energy, because something is always running backwards due to the unfinished process. And those things with which we enter into the new relationship can become a repetition of previous situations. We transfer these without realizing that something hasn't been completed in the past. And so we have a greater requirement or expectation from our next partner to heal, to patch up what we ourselves did not want to complete as a personal process. And so we create another image. The ego form of our thought begins to work and create new images of what our new partner should be. What's he or she supposed to do for me? How can I make up for what I've lost before? What should happen? And what haven't I found in previous relationships? But this way of thinking, of filling the void, of the notion of investing my love in the next relationship, comes again through an image of the ego mind. I need someone to save me, someone to heal me, someone to give me what someone else hasn't given me. And this idea comes in a specific way inside of us. And at some point, when we imagine it in a specific way, our internal images will diverge from external reality with what is happening. Because it's just that the other can't fulfill this inside image we have, this reality. This is our inner fantasy about what the boundaries of this partner should be, the borders of his or her love, and ability that he or she has to love us. Because we create these borders through our need and image of what he or she needs to heal and save, in order to prove to us that it is our place within the borders of love. Except it's a dangerous trap again. A trap that plants again the seeds of a disappointment, seeds in which our painful and emotional being chooses to imagine the new relationship. And our pain-filled emotional being will transfer that pain that piled up through our experiences, where we have left unfinished processes. And when we enter the new one without understanding, with this pain-filled emotional fantasizing about the new relationship, we will connect and elicit the pain-filled emotional being of our new partner, the next partner. Afterwards, of course, we go through the phase of the so-called and idealized falling in love. And during this new beginning, we show only the beautiful side of us, our sympathetic side, where we try to be likable to the other, to show that we're special. But the more we try to focus on what we like and what is ideal at this moment, the more we lose the opportunity to see from the beginning the other in their entirety. We lose this possibility because we have lost the opportunity to see ourselves as a whole. That is because of the many protective walls we have built for ourselves, because of the ego that creates its shadow patterns of connection, and due to the projections we make. The projections of what I do not like, or what I do not want to see in relation to myself, meets our pain without us understanding this. We get used to hiding this pain from the very beginning, without having worked through our personal responsibility for that pain. And after a while, when we have already entered into a relationship and gathered some experience, we begin to develop affection for this hidden pain. And when that security and affection emerges, we begin to design our pain themes. And at some point, when we were so perfectly beautiful, sympathetic, we begin to see our imperfections. And we begin to fight them, and again, the themes of pain unfold in the current relationship we are building. And that's why I'm asking you to take a look and revise 2 things. The first is whether or not you have unfinished topics from previous partners. Insult, anger, and broken trust. What is it that you feel isn't finished? When you think about this past partner and past story, what is the issue that piled up and became the reason for divergence, disappointment, or bitterness that was the cause of separation? Pain. What is this imaginary thorn that still gouges us in there? The love and emotion of a past relationship. Even if you have tried to forget, it is not forgotten and remains at a subconscious level as a topic that will find different ways to manifest itself in your life. If it is not in your partner relationship, it will be in some other way, because the lessons always show themselves. That's the first thing. And when this comes out of the past, please check as to whether or not you have transferred it in any way to your current relationship. Whether this has become a priority again. Whether you are now much more vigilant in your current relationship and are trying to exert more control or to be careful. Think about whether you have transferred the responsibility for your salvation and healing from yourself to your current partner. Because if we do this, there will remain some underwater currents. We can sink into disappointment. We can stop processing at some point. Because shouldn't the other guy or gal do it for us? Shouldn't the other person be responsible for our past traumas? He has his traumas, she has hers, we have ours, and for this, everyone must be accountable to themselves and to their own experience. Then it's much easier to meet freely, knowing that responsibility lies more in ourselves, in relation to ourselves. Where am I in this disappointment? When I transfer the need for salvation and healing to someone else, then this disappointment is superimposed. My disconnection between my inner vision and the externally occurring reality. When it comes to disappointment, we are largely involved in the prolongation of this disappointment because we want to realize and look at the fact that the center of what defines external reality is the ego center, what I am. This consists, consciously and unconsciously, of what I represent in relation to myself, what stands within me as beliefs, attitudes, values, traumas, insults, blocked emotions, resources, gratitude, and the way of perceiving myself, my relationship with life, and others. What I consciously believe, speak, and how I perceive the traumas of the past, meaning what I carry from previous partners, what is the foundation for my immediate family, which has been the way that I have experienced myself and where I have observed myself. The truths spoken and unspoken are exactly what defines my inner vision, my inner sense of myself. And if I don't want to take responsibility for myself, if I underestimate myself, if I myself think it is necessary to use control and convince the other of my rightness in fighting this way, if I don't trust myself, if I myself am afraid to express my desires and fears, if I myself have the desire to run away from conflict so as not to express and reveal how I am different, because this can cause conflict. If I have all these things that you yourself can also use, I will emit what I carry inside myself, what I present to you in such a dialogue. When I broadcast such things, it will be my way of paying attention, of understanding myself. And all the important people who enter my life, they will capture what I emanate from myself in a visible and invisible way. They will take it and they will have to start feeling obligated to love me and give to me in the way that I love, give, and understand myself and the internal relationships I have. And if I have a pattern of rejection, of underestimating, a feeling of doubt, of guilt, the other will love me exactly that way, through accusations, through doubts, through guilt. Thus, we create the footprints that are piled up in the path of disappointment, which at some point begin to close our heart more and more. We see the disappointment through the accusations, through the misunderstandings the other has about us. We feel disappointment that the other does not fulfill my idea of boundaries and share the same attitude, that he or she does not fulfill my inner fantasies. But we don't allow that our partner might also have his or her own fantasies and inner notions. And do we fulfill his or her fantasies and ideas? Now, that's something else. First, you need to think about your own patterns and ego needs. And if there is time, we will also look at what is happening in each other's ego garden. But let's be aware of all these things. Withdraw your need, the investment of the other person in saving you. See what he or she saves you from. Save everyone by not imposing that your partner give you an opportunity that you feel you cannot create for yourself. I cannot buy a house, so he has to buy me a house and look after me in a certain way. I cannot support myself because I lack confidence that I have knowledge, and that is why she has to tell me constantly how confident I am, how strong I am, how much I can do, how much I know. If I've been betrayed before, someone lied to me, someone cheated on me, someone downplayed what I gave them, now the new partner has to try very, very hard to give me these things, to support me, to save me, to heal those wounds that I carry as painful imprints. I need to disinvest in this harmful, unconscious habit, seeking someone to save me, and to realize that it's something that is going through me, but I shouldn't hang on to it, so I can analyze it for myself. Because I have to have the guts to really process this, to see my responsibility, my footprint from the disappointment and lack of strength, to take responsibility for myself. It's possible that you are trying to save yourself and not giving all the love you're capable of just now, because you feel like in other relationships you gave yourself completely, and now you're abstaining. Yes, it's a safety mechanism. Something inside you begins to speak to you. Put up a firm boundary to protect yourself from pain and disappointment once again. But the need to abstain is an indicator to me that I am carrying pain that I have not processed, and therefore I cannot open my heart fully again. Because love and connectivity with the other is always a guarantee of love and giving, but it is also a challenge that can hurt us. Injury, however, should not lead us to close ourselves off, but rather to look into the meaning of this pain and the lesson it is teaching us. Because we are hurting ourselves, as I said just now, through our pain-filled emotional being, through the trauma that is left unprocessed. If every time we close ourselves more and more and restrain ourselves more, at some point we will not be able to feel and will fear the slightest feelings of love. Because if we try to kill pain through abstinence, we will become lost inside ourselves and in our pain being, and it won't do us any good. It won't be a source of support for us. So at this point, disinvest in the projection of the Savior, by which I mean trying to get the other to be your Savior and to heal what you need to work on by yourself. See what's still unresolved from past relationships, the disappointment or pain with which you have closed yourself off or you were trying to avoid. See if it's repeated in the current situation and realize that you yourself create such footprints and experience disappointment. Because by not taking responsibility for yourself, by claiming that I want the other to carry this for me, there will always be a discrepancy because the other can't handle the double responsibility of us and also themselves. And here we work with the pain being. You should go to work on this topic. What pain do I carry? What sadness? What am I disappointed about? What does this pain and sadness teach me? Why have they remained here for so long? Then how have I transferred them to the other person? For you to ask yourself such questions reaches therapeutic depths and will allow what is inside of you to emerge. Do it as if this person is standing in front of you, or this topic has been assigned to you, and you are performing a dialogue. This hurts me. That is what fooled me. This is what I'm ashamed of. That's what I transferred onto the other person. I didn't want to be responsible for myself. I was afraid to show myself. I was expecting my partner to figure it out. I didn't want to and couldn't deal with this topic, but I decided that the other person should be able to handle it all right. And then this and that happened. Release what has not been released, what has not been valued, and what has not been brought out in a primal, authentic way. It's important to write it down, and this has an extremely strong therapeutic effect. It helps us to process and heal from the pain, to resolve it. Pain is like a friend that enters our lives. We also have had indications from previous situations, previous relationships, or previous experiences that have suggested to us that we are doing something unhealthy, that we tolerate something that is unhealthy for us, that we serve models that are not useful to us, that we don't want to see some truth about ourselves. The more stubborn we are, not wanting to expand our focus, and we always do the same thing, thinking that it is the only possible option and waiting for something else to happen, not knowing how, but wanting something to happen without us participating in this new discovery, the more the pain increases. We must take responsibility for that. And when we've had these small signals, at first, they're always smaller signals, but we miss seeing them along the way because we're not ready to work on them. We don't want to see them. We are lazy, and it requires effort. As a patient called yesterday and said, "I'm seeking such help for the first time, and I understand that I need it, but can you tell me how many sessions I will have to take? 1, 2, 3, 4? And I said, "Well, that depends only on what the topic is and in what depth you want us to work." Freud said that the analysis is both finite and infinite, and there will always be something that we won't finish in the end. But going into in-depth understanding takes time, and the signals, they've been there before, but we haven't paid attention. And at some point, there comes a heavier manifestation, a heavier mechanism to jolt us into paying attention to something that has for a long time filled the vessel of our subconscious with blocked, unspoken, unprocessed things. The pain. First, we have to turn to it and find out what it's teaching us. What does it teach you? What is it? Whether the pain is associated with some disappointment. Is it related to some way that you didn't express yourself? You haven't been understood? Were there any breaches of trust? This is the subject that concerns you personally, and the pain wants to show you that in a certain area you have something you don't want to realize. You don't want to take responsibility, or it carries a damaging element that destroys you, and you have to see what it is in order to work on it. And when you see this, you'll see what's the thing that's taken you away from a healthier mechanism. Let's say if the subject of pain is some anger, something I'm disappointed with, someone betrayed me. The question is, how? What has led to this disappointment, this betrayal? Betraying myself? Not giving the other the right to speak for themselves? We do not realize how we begin to insist that the other person understand us. However, we don't realize that the other also needs to insist on being understood. But we very selectively look only and solely through our own ego, without being able to transfer the opportunity to ourselves and our partner, to see clearly the need of the other, to accept his or her differences. There are many ways to work on pain, but there is no way in one podcast to tell you everything that can cure your subconscious dynamics and processes. There is no way to turn it into a deep process of complete clearance, because we represent who we are thanks to all these years and stories from our conception to this point. So the next thing I want you to pay attention to as an opportunity to transform this model that the other person will save me, and so we remain inexperienced and disappointed, is to replace it, to focus on a stronger point of view. That is, the essence of relationships is not meant to save me, heal me, or make me happy. Rather, relationships are meant to make me conscious, to realize who I am. What are my projections? What does this pain teach me? Where did I lose my way? How much am I fixating in the ego mind? Have I learned my lessons and the evolutionary thresholds which direct me? Those evolutionary thresholds come through the lesson of anger, through the lesson of the pain being, through the lesson of accepting my shadow, and with this to forgive myself for the injuries and violations that I have caused myself and the other person. These evolutionary thresholds I have already discussed in another podcast. In the podcast, The Sphere of Benevolence as a Part of Love and the Development of Relationships. From there, you can get things to work on. Because becoming conscious means I am present in the truth and begin to see something other than the projection of the negative and of the insult, to be aware of what this partner is teaching me. What does this relationship teach me? Why did I attract this particular partner? Of all the partners possible in the world, why has this one become the most important to my mind and to my heart? Why, of all men and women, have I decided to create a serious relationship with exactly this one? To make love, to devote myself, to marry, to have children with him or her in order to continue the family. Because this is the partner that matters most to us right now. We meet the partners who will have the power and capacity to open up the important topics for us. The growth we discussed, the awareness of what my lessons are. What am I learning? But when I cannot look at myself and into my subconscious, I will understand what lies there through my relationships, through conflict, through difficulty, or through the topics that stand out as important in this regard, which are repeated as important and painful in the relationship. Our attitude in relationships reflects some subconscious processes, or reflect the important aspects of the pain being on which we need to work, with our choice to face the truth about ourselves. So, look at how this relationship has a deeper meaning, not salvation and healing, but to make me conscious and aware of my own self. My meeting with you leads me to overcome a threshold of love, which is an evolutionary threshold for meeting myself in another way. Some other self in me, a topic that is important to me. The other is a threshold for me to look at and see the truth about myself and work a little bit with it. What does my past or current relationship teach me? What mindful self message are they sending me? What was I supposed to realize? What threshold has this relationship and this partner uncovered for me as a truth? For example, I try to satisfy my partner, says a client. I always meet his needs. Avoid conflict. I do not express what I need, because he so obsessively screams his own desires. And when I do what he wants, he is still unhappy. He is still not satisfied. Then I realized that there was some other connection, a secret. I piled up insult, and I kept going and kept trying to satisfy each of his wishes, to show that he needed to appreciate me and see that I was ready to do anything. The evolutionary threshold is that I am plunged into the denial of myself, of my own desires, projecting only the importance of the other to satisfy them and fill their voids without taking care of mine at all. But I can actually never fill his if I do not fill mine first and see what my truth is. What's the lesson? That I have to set boundaries. How far will I go in giving, and how far not? How far will I go to meet the wishes of others? How far will I go for mine? How can I be more careful? And where will I put a little sharper, a little more emphatic, a little clearer, with a sharper tone, some boundary that has not been heard? These are processes that lead us to revise and look at the boundaries and processes that are happening within us. But if we don't see them and stay like this client, if she'd stayed in the phase, he's guilty. He doesn't respect me. I did my best. He doesn't understand. I am rejected. I feel disappointed. Life is unfair. Why didn't he understand all this? He doesn't deserve me. If we stay in this projection, we will not be able to go to the next level in the attitude of love and in reaching a strong bond with the other person and with ourselves. Because it's not complete and it's not learned, this lesson about myself, and it's a projection of the blame. Because the ego, the mind, the shadow of the ego needs problems, conflicts, and makes continuous enemies. Because the purpose of the shadow, of the ego, of the obsession of the ego, is to strengthen only the need and the sense of separation, unhappiness, and injustice. See what percentage of the time do you stay in the ego shadow, of the need to create and maintain a problem, conflict, or create enemies. Because here is the confirmation that I am separated from the other, that I am not understood, that the other person does not understand me, that the other has betrayed me, and again someone makes me feel miserable, or again, they are the misfortune in my life, and my inner feeling is confirmed. However, It is our personal responsibility to choose our immersion in the shadow of the ego and to understand whether or not we will allow this possibility to be our only way of connecting with others. If we start letting conflicts and these imaginary or real enemies through the mind of limitation and ego speak to us, at some point, we will see another possibility that at first we may not recognize, but we need time to create it in a new way. Try also that. In the partner relationship, express what you feel without blaming the other. I understand that this is very difficult for people to use language and speak without blaming and transferring such notes of accusations and demands. It's ego-shadow communication. Ego-shadow communication communicates and declares our internal processes, needs, and desires through the body of pain and through the angry emotional being. And thus, the language expresses accusation, requirement, expectation, guilt imputation, battle for control, overpowering the other. In this way, we will challenge the other to communicate with the same elements that I just listed to you. And this is how the misfortune, division, conflict, and enemies in our relationship are consolidated once again. When someone says something we don't agree with, we don't like it. Because when are these occasions expressed as clashes, enemies, and so on? When? When we're all the same, when we're similar, when our narcissistic mirrors are the same, synchronous. We like the same things. We profess the same values. We have the same beliefs. We want to do the same things at the same moment. And then we have no conflict. We have no problems. Everything is amalgamated. We are amalgamated. We are interwoven. Yes, into the uniformity of our narcissism at this point. And we have no reason to diverge from it. The test for us is also in our relationship. When we have our differences, to meet the differences of the other, and to approach and make friends and be humble with these differences, working towards recognizing these distinctions. When the other person says something that contradicts me, my understanding, my need, then it is a conflict. And then these accusations, references, conflicts, assessments, and transfer of responsibilities begin. That's when the piling up of pain happens. The footprints appear. She could go in like this. How much do I do? How did you not know? How long have I been explaining? How long should I wait? I'm not important to you. I don't matter. You're always looking for something else. How long am I here? I gave up work, gave up a lot of things for myself so I could be here, to be valuable to the family, so you wouldn't feel rejected, so I could have prepared something. Or he says, I give everything here, and you want to go and develop? To be absent? Who's going to help? Who's going to deal with it? In a sense, such references, which we do not realize are related precisely to the need to blame for the divergence and disappointment in each other. If we talk more like we do about facts, the self-language, pure language is fine. You're saying something right. Someone's saying something that I don't like or don't understand or it's weird or conflicting. We can say this. I can hear you, but it's hard for me to still understand or accept that point of view. Your vision and your priority collides with my priority, and I need to find a way to understand why I feel so annoyed and angry. And if I think I need to convince you of my opinion because I think mine is righter than yours, because if you did this to me to convince me and impose your opinion on me, I wouldn't feel good. And after I do it to you, you won't feel good. I'll take into account what you tell me. It'll sit with me for a while. I'll think about it. But at this point, I need this or that. Or my knowledge helps me in this or that way. Or I'm looking for solutions on a kind of path you don't understand. But we need time to talk about these things, to be more honest. Apparently, until this moment, we are mainly used to blaming ourselves, to transferring responsibilities, to competing in our disappointments, and knowing no other language. Self-communication means I look at what feelings I carry inside of me. Let's say I feel sadness that we cannot find a nicer way to communicate with each other. This is a way of expressing yourself in which there is no accusation against the other. I don't attack the other's mental state, but if I say, I feel sad because you don't understand me, and you don't start communicating with me the way I tell you to. I read so much literature on this subject, but you never trust me. You see, we are saying the same thing, but it sounds fundamentally different. Or if I feel anger and annoyance because I realize that we in recent years express our love for each other solely through accusation or discontent, and it makes me feel anger, irritation. Why are we doing it? Why do we choose this way to hurt ourselves? Another way to communicate is with I feel statements. This situation leads to my feelings, to this feeling that I have. The first way out of the blame and this projection of the responsibilities of disappointments is when we start to connect. I feel this. I feel that. I realize. The other thing I might see is that we blame each other quite often, and I say, I'm very sad, or I feel sadness because trust has been lost between us and we don't know how to get back to each other. The first step is to talk first before we go into choosing ways to work together with a partner on these topics. But while I say, I'm disappointed because you didn't change, or I'm angry because you don't change, you don't give to me, I feel betrayed and disappointed because you're communicating with these other people, because you didn't change in the way I told you to, because I didn't become important to you in this way. If your partner starts to do the same thing, we're going to cycle into this negative vacuum of throwing at each other the pain bodies of disappointment, and we will expect the other to save us and change, and we remain as we want, trying to show who we are. There's no way that this is going to work. Try and write down what you want to say to your partner, the things you have been saying up to now with an accusation, with accusations toward him or her, with an evaluation, with a connection, and try to see how you can say it using the way we've just said as an example. Is it clear the difference I want to show in these pathways of hurtful pain communication between the ego shadow way and this alternative way that is no longer violent, but instead healthier and better? This is a healing communication of awareness. Other than running away and stopping with these accusations, another important thing is to listen to your partner without defending yourself and explaining yourself. Defense. The explanation testifies that I am a victim in this situation. When I defend and explain myself, I unknowingly turn the other into a violent person towards me. And in this moment, I feel again pain and disappointment, and I have become once again the victim. who is unappreciated, misunderstood, unloved, uncured, and unread in the way that I imagined it. Do not defend yourself and do not explain yourself. You can say, okay, I understand that you're angry. You can't give me that at this point. You're trying to somehow show me that you're offended, or you don't know how to express yourself. What is very important to understand here is that our unconscious pain being causes us to be accusers, critical, protective, harmful. But it's not because we really want it, but because internal issues make us so. Identifying ourselves with the unconscious aspects, our identification with the ego shadow of something frustrating and negative, and our essence is hidden deep behind these masks of being the bad one, through which we communicate. Deep down, each one of us is a good and bright being, in need of love and healthy relating to ourselves and to others. It's just that our history, our injuries, the criticisms that we inherited from our parents, from our ancestral history, from our consciousness as adults, during maturation, leave us a lot of shadowy and negative impressions, which we ourselves at some point have to start working on and start communicating, of course, through them, because this is the greatest burden that we carry within us. And withdrawing this defense, we can say, okay, I acknowledge your emotion. You're angry. You're annoyed. You don't like what I'm saying. You have a right. You feel that way right now, vulnerable or misunderstood. But that goes for me too. I have these feelings too, and I'm experiencing that at this point. But do you want to try to hear what the other is saying beyond the attack, beyond the anger and the victimizing? Come on, let's just try to hear each other in a safe way. Let's pray on our own. Let's create such a dialogue on our own. Make such a request of each other. It's the only way we're going to start peeling away from these defensive or offense-defense positions in our relationship and work to bring those distinctions closer. How, you might say? What's different? What's different and important to you right now? What can't I understand? I'll tell you what's important to me right now. Can we try to think through our own viewpoint and give the other space to analyze theirs? You tried to see things from my perspective, and I through yours. I want to think about how you are different. I want to give to you in a way that is calming for you, that will nourish you, because you're important to me, because I'm willing to give to you even through this pain that we're going through, because deep down, I know you don't want to hurt me. Because you're hurting yourself and you're talking through this pain. I'm hurt myself and I'm talking through my pain. But in the depths beyond that, we want to be respectful. We want to be healthy. We want to be loving in a lighter and more resourceful way. But if my partner says, I'm angry with you because you didn't find time for me in the way I asked you to. You didn't do what I've been asking you to for the second month in a row. And I here can react with my defense ego because it feels like an offense and say, well, you remember that one time? Did I burden you? I did it myself. I found a solution. I didn't give it to you, so it wouldn't be too much for you. But of course I didn't tell you that because I didn't whine about you like that woman or that friend. I did it on my own. You don't appreciate it. You don't see how much I do for you. And when I asked you to do this or that, because I wasn't well, you were also distracted and told me, at this moment, I can't. And did you notice how I agreed, how I accepted it? And now why are you treating me like this? This dialogue, I'm sure you're very familiar with it, because this becomes a familiar dialogue that goes on for years, in which we hold at least 70%, if not more, of our communication with regards to love and bonding. Then we wonder why it is so current and so problematic already and conflicting, so relevant to the topic of partnership relations in recent years. Because already the need to restore the truth in a more meaningful, healthy way in relation to the bonds of love and truth is now indispensable and necessary. And in this example I gave you, if we start this way, we will get tired. Then the aggression comes in. We can start throwing things at each other. We start to roar. And we'll go again. Here I'm not understood. There you are, and you will never change. Here I thought you might change, but it doesn't make any sense anymore. Yes, it doesn't make any sense because you yourself don't make any sense. And we start to get offended, and the chagrin comes. Everyone shuts down. We start calling our girlfriends. Do you know, he did it again? And our friends ask, how long will you tolerate him? How long will you put up with him? He goes to do some work, has hobbies, and says afterwards, I'm going on a business trip for a week. Don't call me. There's another pain, another disappointment, another label we're sticking on each other. We're bad. You're bad. Until when? Why? We're so obsessed and fed by the symbolic urge of death that every day I feel scared. It's very sad. The pain is terribly great, and we continue to serve it because obviously that's what we're so used to and know. However, if we work towards relinquishing this offense-defense mechanism, look at some topic that currently stands out for you and try to talk to your partner in another way. For example, I understand that you are angry. I understand that you are sad. I guess we haven't been able to understand each other, and we're always getting away with it. What can I do for you to make you feel better? What do you want me to hear? What do you want me to know? What's important to you? Try to listen without inserting the whole negative scenario of rejection, of insult, of accusations, of disappointment, of attack when someone speaks to you. Because when the other person speaks to you and you are in this inner scenario, yes, it's clear to me. Yes, here I am rejected again. I'm not getting it again. We will not hear impartially. Let's hear without evaluation. Let's hear it without accusing the other. He might say, I want you to understand that this is my opportunity at this point, that this is what I can give you, that this is what is missing, that you didn't hear me and you didn't give me this. So you want me to give you what I forgot to give you, to hear what I haven't expressed as gratitude and a kind word. Take it and give it to him. And then you ask, and now I ask you to give to and think about me, about my need and my difference. And it is this or that. It might become clear that the differences are great between you. An extreme difference doesn't have to leave you frightened. Do not be unapproachable, but communicate when it is impossible for you to satisfy extreme differences. I can't give you this in the way you want, and you can't clearly give me that in my way. Okay, we accept it. We're not fighting. We're not blaming ourselves. We're not defending ourselves. We're not attacking each other. We stop. We say, well, we can't give it to each other in that way. The second step is, which way could we take? What could I possibly do? How could I possibly be? What at this point could I do about this for you? It's not the way it is in your head. I'm sorry, but I couldn't do it that way. Do you want to take it? Do you want to try? Do you want to see what it's like for you? And vice versa. The other person could say, and I could do that. And give yourself a trial period, giving what is possible to each other and in a way that the other can experience it. You have no idea where it could take you. It might lead to another greater opportunity where someone would say, I liked what happened, or it made sense. Let's move on. Let's try one more step. But this will only happen if we follow these steps. What I am telling you is that you need to turn it into an experience within your relationship and in your meeting with love in general between you and your partner. The longing and all this aims to move towards truth and wholeness in love, to be ourselves, to become whole, to be whole. We need an opportunity to express ourselves. In order to become complete, we have to have the opportunity. So let's give ourselves the opportunity in relationships to express our fears and desires. I'm afraid of this. I want that. I'm worried about this. I'm aiming for that. If we can take away all the prejudices, assessments, disappointments, we need in some way to cleanse ourselves. Let's force ourselves to cleanse and set ourselves somewhere aside and say, all right, let me hear him or her, but without this internal destructive ego shadow pattern of relations. Can I hear what he or she has to say simply as words, as a footprint, as words without this other internal dialogue? And when these thoughts of mine become bitter, I can say to them, stop. I am listening to my partner impartially. If there's some defense thought coming through, stop that thought. I'm listening to my partner impartially. If a thought of disappointment comes to you, stop that thought. I'm listening to my partner. Use your intent impartially. Set affirmations, commands to help you in this process. It's going to be very difficult. It may even be impossible because so far, experience shows us that to a large degree, we are keeping our old patterns of bonding, of ego shadow processes, of charging, of defense, of demand, of anticipation, salvation, healing, disappointments, channeling our rightness, the battle against the other. It's a delving into the very deepest levels of our destruction. And if we continue, maybe our only way of connecting is now through destruction. But this will destroy everything that exists. Money, which can be something good, will become something bad. Our home, which can be support and sustenance, will become pressure, rejection, and denial. The earth will no longer feed us. It will destroy us because we're in this projection. We will not be able to accept others, to hear them, because we already don't care and we love our freedom too much and don't like compromises and don't like exploring ourselves. The ego will repeat again and again, I am the most important. I am this. I am that. And we will remain in this multi-layered destruction, which has already long been present. And the transformation? The first important process of transformation begins precisely with what I told you as steps and the opportunity to sit down and hear the other. What are her fears? What are his desires? Imagine that you're a therapist and you want to hear the other's pain. You want to hear their inner world so that you can help them, so that you can understand it. You should hear it. You must be present for what happened in it. Just tell yourself, I am listening to it impartially. And write down, these are his fears. These are her unspoken worries. These are his desires. Do not feel narcissistic, suffering, and allowing your ego to get offended, because you will hear his or her fears and desires. And at this point, you do not have to voice yours, because when you hear the other in a real way, he or she will give you an opportunity to hear you in this real way. So we will begin to emerge from the destructive swamp on all levels. But we have to and need to start doing it already, together in this process of the current time. In this way, we will improve our functioning. We will grow and evolve. We will understand the other through the meeting of our minds, our consciousness. We will discover the deep value of the heart, of love, which is different from the ego heart of our shadow, through another way of connecting that is not through the painful, angry, offensive body. Then we will reach that vibration that is being discussed, a higher vibration with more energy, a light connection or synchronization for those levels through which our present is moving. So we will meet this newly evolved self. We will meet this more complete love. But if I refuse to be present and hear the other's fears and desires, if I don't give myself the opportunity to express my desires, we will continue in this old familiar way until one day it is all over, or the wounding and pain will be our only sense of bonding. And here are the traps in which I can't give space to fears and desires. What is the first trap? That you are responsible for my fears and desires. The first trap, the projection, the rescuer, the healer. For the partner to be responsible for me, I can abdicate from that. The second trap is that you have to do it for me and instead of me. I want, again, someone to take care of that for which I do not want to take responsibility. And you hurt me, and you became bitter for me, and it made our experience bad. Thus, with these traps, we will only continue our violence and misery. We will intensify the disappointment and the battle, and intensify the negative loneliness and frustration. We are very involved in these processes. We know them very well, but too little do we know of the other bright aspects, the constructive aspects to which we have paid attention today, on which we must begin to work and introduce into our lives. And the transformation will begin precisely with a willingness to observe the truth, readiness to be an observer without assessments, of my thoughts, of my place, of the subjects, and of the other. Become observers. Listen to all these things that we are talking about, and then there will come a very nice process. My truth can coexist with your truth, and it will not be as before, my truth versus your truth. There's a huge difference. Sit down and deal with the truth. I have a revelation that I want to entrust to you. If you're in a relationship at this point, trust the truth. I have a story I want to tell you that I never gave myself the right to talk about, but I'm going to ask you to relax and trust me with what you have never been ready to trust me before. Let us open up and share about our desires and fears. Let's go beyond blaming and attacking to hear the truth as it is for each and every one of us, and where we differentiate the most. not to continue to seek into the battle of disappointment, of divergence, but to see what else we can do to get closer. And let's give each other the message at that point. Yes, let's stay a little longer. Let's stay a little longer in this relationship, in this story, to learn about ourselves, to get to that phase when at the beginning of our life together we set out to talk about my conscious self, the realization of the truth. When we are ready to say those sentences, where we are not in the ego shadow accusation, attacks, criticism, assessments, supremacy, but say, yes, I am sad that we have come to this. We must have both been very offended and learned to hurt each other more than to help each other. Do you want to talk about how we can help each other? But if at this moment you say, and you want me to help you now? And do you remember when I asked you for help before? Yeah, this is the old model coming back. It doesn't make sense. Listen. Talk about what you can take from and give to your partner, what he or she can or cannot share, and how this is hard for you at this point, and vice versa. So we begin to bring together my truth, which has its place, as well as your truth, which has its place. And mine is no more important than yours, nor is yours more important than mine, because we both have the same importance. And what I want to end with is some words that I want you to interact with and imagine, along with everything we've talked about so far, that you can take for your personal work and research and process to move forward on your path of love and connectivity. We love. When can we truly love each other's way of understanding the given person? When is this difference of love to be experienced? We can truly love a person when we are able to love his defects and not to fight them. With her dark sides, not to blame her for them. We can truly love those parts of him or her that are the defects and the dark sides when he or she begins to love them and accept them for themselves. This is another deeper sense of reflecting love. To truly love a person is when we are able to accept the other and love him or her with her defects, with his dark sides, those parts of the other's essence that even he or she does not yet love. To be able to love these dark sides in place of the other until he or she learns to love them. It's beautiful. I think it's possible. And this is one path that if we wish, we could go along. Because when we love and accept the other with his or her defects and dark sides, we give him or her the opportunity to make friends with them instead of fighting them. Then we will have walked the same path with ourselves. Thank you for being together in this meeting. I wish you a nice sunny day. Have peaceful thoughts, joy in your heart, and fill yourself and your life with love. Accept the lessons of the challenges and the pain being. And meeting is just a stage where we get to know a truth that has long been ready to be realized. Thank you again. Love to be loved is my motto. If you like these podcasts and they are useful to you and help you, please share them on your Facebook pages or send them to your friends for whom this topic or these messages might be helpful. And so together we will participate in the process of passing on these principles for mental and emotional wholeness as we face the truth. Embracing a new and healthy love for myself and others in my life. Bye-bye, and see you soon.